Hey everybody, welcome to the vlog. So are coding boot camps worth it in 2020? This is a question that was put to me. And so the answer is 96.8% of the time. This is a precise number, I know. 96.8% of the time, the answer is no. And I'll give you my reasons why. Reason number one, coding boot camps are not worth it in 2020. A lot of the coding bootcamp teachers from what I have seen and heard, I can't say all because I have not checked out every single bootcamp in the world, right? But a lot of them have no business teaching code. They're young nerd nooblings who have very little to no experience a lot of the times. And so they have no business teaching code. Here's the thing. Something I learned a long time ago in martial arts. I remember I was taking a martial art. And it was a grappling style. And I had done other grappling martial arts. And I went into this thing. And some student, I was new at this style, but although I had years of experience in other systems, I go in there doing my first class or within the first couple of weeks of training. And we're doing a wrist lock. And the guy I was training with couldn't get it. So he asked me, can you show me what I'm doing wrong? So I reluctantly go, okay, I'll show you. Because I had seen this wrist lock in other styles. Teacher came to me and said, students don't teach students. Students don't teach students. So he was annoyed by the fact that I was showing this guy stuff. And even though I had learned this particular wrist control, wrist lock in another style, the way they were doing it in this style was different, in fact. And in fact, though I was teaching him a wrist lock, I was teaching him wrong. So that point sort of, I learned, this is when I was like 19 years old or 18 years old. So I took that point to heart. And it made me realize that, hey, wait a second, that teacher's got a point, right? I may think I know what I'm doing, but I could be teaching this guy wrong, which would lead him to doing it wrong, which could cause a lot of problems for the student in the immediate future, if not later, and later on. You see this much more so in the coding world, where I see so much stuff out there put out by young nerdlings, noobs, 20 years old, in their mid-20s. And it's clear to me, somebody who's been coding since the 1990s, that they have very little to no experience. So there's a lot of mythology out there in terms of how coding should be done. And I try to break some of these myths on my channel here. I've been doing it for years. I got like over, 1,600 videos or something like that, just on YouTube. And yeah, so you got to beware, when you're looking at learning how to do anything, especially something highly technical, like coding, programming, beware of young nerd nooblings who are just new to the game, because they're going to probably teach you wrong. They may teach you the superficial, but they're probably going to teach you wrong. So that's the number one reason why I am wary of coding boot camps. A lot of times the teachers have no business teaching. They simply don't have the background in coding to be able to teach. In my opinion, and I get this from martial arts, I also get this from coding, I didn't really have a good, deep understanding of coding until after 10 years. Now, I was able to you could start working as a junior dev or a junior coder with a couple months of training. People have done that. People do that. But you're a junior. You still have no business teaching. And because one of the things you have to recognize is as a junior dev, you're still learning. So you jump into the game, you learn your foundations, you jump into the game quickly, meaning you get a job quickly as a junior dev. And then you're going to be writing code, but you're going to be paid to learn as you go. It's kind of like in boxing, where you learn how to box and then you become an amateur fighter and you learn the craft, you learn how to fight, you learn how to box as an amateur, And then once you've done enough amateur fights or you've learned enough, then you move into the pros where you actually start making money as a pro. I'm not advocating you become a boxer, by the way. And I was thinking about becoming a professional fighter back in the day. I'm so glad I didn't, because my brain is intact and most of my face is intact, right? 80% of professional fighters, football players, they have brain damage. So it's not worth it, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a tangent. So that's the number one reason. These code teachers don't know what they're doing. They're just junior noobs, a lot of them. Why? Because if you're a really good developer, you're going to make much more money as a developer as a code teacher, unfortunately. Unless you do stuff like create a platform like I did, and so on and so forth. But beyond that, yeah, it's like, that's the number one reason to be very wary. So you see a young nerdling who looks clearly in his 20s, be very careful about that. Number two, teaching is a skill, right? People go to school for years to learn how to teach, but you have to have a natural talent. I come from a family of teachers. My father taught for vocational for most of his adult life. 6 or 7 of my cousins are teachers. Many of my aunts and uncles are teachers. It's in our blood, surrounded by education, surrounded by teaching. And I can tell you, vast majority of code courses, whether it be boot camps or online, they're taught by people who have no idea about teaching. That's why I believe that's why so many people, when they learn how to code, they're like, oh, this is too hard. I can't understand coding. You got to be a genius. I think most of the time get that perception that coding is so hard because the teachers are really not too good. They're lousy. Sorry. It's a personal thing for me. It's a personal thing for me because people who want to become coders, because there's such a huge demand, there's a lot of money to be made in this game, they could do it. But for the fact that you got these people who are out there pretending that they can teach and creating these artificial barriers for people, and then they give up because they think they're dumb, when they're not, is that the teachers don't know how to teach. That happens so many times, it really gets my goat. Gets my goat as an expression means ticks me off. Anyhow, so that's another 2 reasons why. Boot camps, a lot of these people who teach the boot camps don't know how to teach. I've seen it firsthand. Now, how about the quality of the people coming out of boot camps? A boot camp implies, it reminds you of the military. You're gonna rush through things, and you're gonna work really hard, you're gonna come out 6 months later, you're gonna be amazing. That sucks. It's terrible. It's no good. No. Learning how to code should be a deliberate, relaxed process where you have time to assimilate the information. You learn at a nice pace that's relaxed for you so the information flows in. When you're under stress, you won't learn. When you're trying to rush it through, you won't learn. You will not learn. That's just stupid, right? This is not a military boot camp. It's such a stupid name. Learning to code should be a relaxed process where you learn at your own pace. Because whether it takes you 6 months to get there, 1 month to get going, I'm not saying you become an expert, or a year, right? It doesn't matter. Because once you're there and the knowledge is assimilated, once you really understand programming and coding, doesn't matter how long it took you, right? It doesn't matter. Once you get there, you got it, it's done. So if it takes you an extra 3 months, or you get it done and faster, that's fine. So this whole idea of the boot camp rushing through 6-hour, 8-hour days, that's also stupid. Because if you understand psychology, the brain, my major in university was psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but that was my major, so I remember a few things, right? The brain can only take in a certain amount of information per day. Yes, there are different degrees. Some people are very good at it. They can take in a lot more. Some people can take in much less. I think optimal is about 3 to 4 hours a day, max. Could be 2 to 3. See, I'm getting so old, I forget. I think it's either 3 to 4 or 2 to 3. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, you see what I mean? 6 to 8 hour days sitting there hammering out code is stupid, especially when you're learning. Just like when you train in the gym, you have to give your body time to assimilate, to heal itself. So you go to the gym, you lift weights, you do the rest time. is as important as the training time. If you don't give your body a chance to rest and repair the damage to the muscles, you won't make any gains, or you'll make a lot less gains, and you're always going to be tired and burnt and prone to injury. Guess what? The brain needs time to assimilate information as well. So I tell people, do 2 hours a day, do an hour a day. Doesn't matter. And also, at least once or twice a week, take a day off. You have to give your brain time to think and assimilate, to process the information. So the whole concept of the Rush Bootcamp is just dumb. Let me add to this conversation, and this is anecdotal. I have a friend of mine who hires lots and lots of people. And I asked him about that. A local bootcamp approached his company and said, hey, you mind if we send you our bootcamp graduates, and you can try them out on stages, That's one of the ways the bootcamp sell you. Say, you take your bootcamp, we'll get you a stage job. That's so stupid. You can get a stage job on your own. I teach you how to do that. Simple. You get your fundamentals. You put up a website that looks good, detailing your skills, and you go out there, whether it be on a site or local business or through friends. Then you build a couple of projects, small projects, for free, part of the learning process. Boom, bing, boom, Bob's your uncle. You got your stash. Anyway. So back to my friend. So he's brought in a bunch of boot campers. And he said they were the worst. They were absolutely the worst. They didn't know anything. They didn't know what they're doing. And he stopped bringing in boot camp. People were going to work for free. He said they were so terrible that he said they didn't want them at all. They were more expensive to have for free than not to have them at all, because they just wasted time, wrote terrible code, caused all kinds of problems, and slowed down the whole production. That was my experience as well. Now, you may or may not know me, but I have an educational staff, Studio Web, which predates so many other people out there. I've been developing courses since 2003. So I'm one of the original course creators online by far. And so I developed a learning SaaS, Studio Web, specifically for code. It's unique, and it's very effective because the results are it's unique. It's a unique platform designed specifically to teach code based on my years and years, in fact, over a decade of experience teaching code. But also leverages my knowledge of coding. See, one of the reasons you want a highly experienced person to teach you code, because they're going to know what's important in the languages, what's important in terms of working practices. And you see that, like somebody recently sent me an email, they saw all these, they call them nuggets of experience-based information that I put in there that really speeds up the process. So anyway, Studio Web, my platform, it used to be Studio Web, my web design studio. Now, in 1998, now I was doing it since 96, but in 1998 I decided to come up with the name Studio Web. When you look up the domain registry, it's me, 1998. So Studio Web was my web design studio, and I had a small team of people working for me. And I've talked about this experience in the past. And then several years ago, when the Studio Web application was developed, when I started getting my first commercial clients, schools and whatnot, I rebranded it Studio Web. I had the domain name, thank God. Good domain names are hard to get these days. So I used Studio Web. That's why Studio Web is now my code training platform. But originally it was my web design studio. So back in those days, I remember I tried hiring students. I would not do it again. It was so hard because a lot of them were ill prepared. And it's not because of students. It's because a lot of the teachers don't know how to teach. They don't know anything about the industry. And to develop a good code course, you got to have a lot of experience in the industry, so you know what to teach people so that they can get to a professional level, proficient level quickly. And it's not learning how to build a Twitter clone with React. Those type of project-based tutorial courses are fine after you have your fundamentals. And you can just look at one way of doing things. Again, these projects are not when you see a project, how to build this in React, or how to build this with Vue, or how to do this with Python, these are just examples of one way to do it, right? There are almost infinite ways in which you can skin that coding cat, meaning how you would structure a Twitter clone. You talk to 10 different developers who are experienced, you're going to get 10 different ways of doing it, right? So I think that's a misconception I think a lot of juniors have, is they think that, oh, this is the way to build this. No, it's not, because there's all kinds of variables in software development. There's tons of variables. So right now, for example, I'm the architect for Studio Web. I designed the original prototype. I don't write that code because I'm just too busy, but I do code inspections once in a while, and I choose my developers, etc. So I got my hands deep into that. I am now involved, and I've built many SaaSes over the years. So now I'm involved in another project where I'm a partner in this thing, and we're building another piece of software, another SaaS, unrelated to code and education, but it's a heavy-duty application that manages how the business processes all its orders and so forth. I won't get into the details, but it takes, when you're building an app, there's not one tutorial in the world will cover 5% of what I need to do for this particular app. Now, you can take all the tutorials in the world, how to build this, how to build that, how to do, and they won't cover 1% of what went into the architecture and the coding for Studio Web. Every project is unique. Again, coding tutorials are there for people, should be there for people who have a background, who just want to get their feet wet quickly in a particular framework if they don't use the doc. See, once you get good enough, you don't need to go to get a tutorial on this. You can go to YouTube, watch a few videos on, okay, how you set it up, boom, 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 boom. Okay, got it. Okay, let's go. Because what you're going to learn is a lot of these things are just rehashed old ideas over and over again. So, for example, when I teach my stuff, I'm teaching the fundamentals. So I teach HTML, CSS, and I get into programming with JavaScript, where I teach client-side programming. I teach DOM manipulation and animation, like that. And these principles apply to any language, really. Then I can jump you into SQL, so you understand databases and querying databases and optimizing your queries and why you do this, etc. But I don't cover everything out there, because it would take me 10 years to write tutorials on every single variant of databases. But I cover the fundamentals. All of a sudden, you can jump in any direction. Then I use Python to teach other things, and I use PHP to teach other things. So for me, I use the languages. They are as much about the languages as they are about concepts and techniques and ways of thinking about code. So there you go. So there are advanced ways of thinking about code and perceiving code, and there are junior ways. Coder camps, junior ways, generally. I don't know every coder camp in the world. There might be some good ones. It all depended on the teacher, by the way. It's all dependent on the teacher. But again, I just don't like the format. Coding should be a process which you learn it at a pace which your brain can assimilate the knowledge. In the first few months of learning the code, or first month or so, depending on your background, it may take you, it will come in a little slower at first, because you gotta get that brain adapted to that whole new way of thinking. I call it developing the nerd eyes. Once you develop those nerd eyes where you can start reading code like it's English, or it's like it's your first language, then the process of learning accelerates. It's just like a car, unless you got a high-performance sports car, you press on the gas, right? It's a slow, and then it goes fast. Same with learning code. Starts off seemingly slow, and then the whole world opens up. There you go. I hope you found this video useful. Code camps in 2020. Only time I do code camp is maybe if you're highly experienced and you're too lazy to to want to, go to the docs. But again, people go to, I think experienced coders who go to code camps, they just want to get away from work for for a week or two. That's pretty much it. And then it's also just noobs who just want a quick way and they're insecure about the process. Or they may have been frustrated with the plethora, the vast majority of code courses, which I give a big thumbs down. So how do you find a good code course? Experience. Does the teacher have real projects to show? Like for me, you can see my track record going back years. Search my name years and years and years and years and years. Decades, in fact. But I think the flagship right now is Studio Web. Studio Web. I'm actually one of the few code teachers that actually has a platform that teaches code. I developed that platform. So you look for experience. I'm sorry for the shameless self-promotion. You got to do it though. Oh, phone. All right, that's the end of that video.